Hey, English learners! Welcome back to the EPHQ podcast, your English podcast for daily life English, real conversations, and easy English listening practice.
Welcome to the place where language learning comes alive through genuine conversations and practical techniques you can actually use.
I'm Alex.
I'm Luna. Alex, I have to tell you about something incredible I discovered recently. I was talking to a friend who became fluent in English in just 18 months, and when I asked her secret, her answer completely surprised me.
18 months to fluency? That's impressive. What was her secret method? Some expensive course or intensive program?
That's what I thought too, but no. She said she spent most of her time doing something that sounds almost too simple to work, something that most language learners either ignore completely or try once and give up on too quickly.
Now you've got my attention. Something simple that most people ignore? Was it conversation practice with native speakers?
Close, but not quite. It's a technique that gives you the benefits of conversation practice without needing a partner, without scheduling conflicts, and without the anxiety of making mistakes in front of other people.
That sounds like the perfect language learning solution. No scheduling, no anxiety, but still effective? I'm genuinely curious what this technique could be.
And the best part is that it's completely free, and you can do it anywhere, anytime. Listeners, what do you think? What language learning technique could give you conversation benefits without needing an actual conversation partner?
Before we reveal this game-changing technique, let's take a moment for our community reminder. If you're enjoying these practical English learning conversations, hit subscribe and become part of our EPHQ learning family.
And tap that like button if these real-world English lessons are helping you improve your language skills in ways that actually matter.
Remember, you don't need to understand every single word perfectly. Focus on the overall meaning and let your brain absorb the natural English patterns while you learn something that could transform your language learning journey.
Exactly. The most effective learning happens when you're relaxed and engaged, not when you're stressing over every detail.
All right, Luna, I can't wait any longer. What's this mysterious technique that led to such rapid fluency?
Today, we're exploring how shadowing leads to fluency.
Shadowing leads to fluency.
Yes, it's the powerful technique of simultaneously listening to and speaking along with native speakers in real time, mimicking their pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation like you're their linguistic shadow.
That sounds fascinating and a bit challenging at the same time. I can already see how this could revolutionize someone's language learning approach.
We're going to explore what shadowing actually involves in practical terms, why it's so much more effective than traditional study methods, and how you can start implementing this technique today to accelerate your journey to fluency.
So, our listeners will enhance their English vocabulary while discovering a proven method that transforms passive listening into active fluency-building practice.
Let's begin with the fundamentals. What does shadowing actually look like when you're doing it correctly?
Luna, when I think about shadowing, I imagine someone listening to audio and trying to repeat everything they hear at exactly the same time, like an echo. Is that accurate?
That's exactly the basic concept, but there's much more depth to it. Effective shadowing isn't just about repeating words. You're simultaneously training your listening comprehension, pronunciation, rhythm, stress patterns, and natural speech flow, all at the same time.
So it's like a full workout for all your language skills at once. Instead of practicing listening separately, then speaking separately, you're integrating everything into one powerful exercise.
Exactly. And the magic happens because you're not just hearing the language, you're physically producing it simultaneously with native speakers, which creates incredibly strong neural pathways for natural speech patterns.
I imagine this helps with something many learners struggle with, the gap between understanding English and actually speaking it fluently. You might understand everything, but still sound unnatural when you speak.
That's precisely the problem shadowing solves. Most traditional language learning focuses heavily on input, reading, listening, studying grammar rules. But shadowing bridges the gap between input and output by making you practice natural speech production from day one.
And listeners, think about this for a moment. When you shadow native speakers regularly, what aspects of your English do you think would improve most dramatically? Consider not just vocabulary, but the way you sound when you speak.
That's such an important reflection. Most people focus on learning more words, but shadowing helps you sound natural with the words you already know.
So, Luna, here's something I'm curious about. How is shadowing different from just listening to English audio or repeating sentences after you hear them? What makes the simultaneous aspect so crucial?
That simultaneous element is absolutely key. When you listen and then repeat, you're using your memory and conscious thought processes. But when you shadow simultaneously, you bypass conscious analysis and tap into more automatic language processing.
So it's the difference between thinking about the language and developing an intuitive feel for how it flows naturally, like the difference between consciously thinking about each step when you walk versus walking automatically without conscious effort.
Perfect analogy. Shadowing helps you develop that automatic, intuitive relationship with English rhythm and sound patterns. You start to internalize how English really sounds, rather than how you think it should sound based on spelling or grammar rules.
And I imagine this addresses one of the biggest challenges for English learners, the fact that English spelling and pronunciation often don't match. Shadowing teaches you how words actually sound in connected speech.
Exactly. You learn about linking, reduction, and all the natural modifications that happen when native speakers talk at normal speed in real conversations rather than in textbook examples.
Now, here's the crucial question. If shadowing is so effective, why don't more language learners use this technique consistently?
There are several psychological and practical barriers. First, shadowing feels awkward and difficult at the beginning. Many people try it once, struggle to keep up, and conclude they're not ready for it yet.
So they think they need to reach a higher level before shadowing will be useful, when actually shadowing could help them reach that higher level more quickly.
Exactly. It's like thinking you need to be fit before you can exercise. The struggle is part of the process, not a sign that you're doing something wrong. But many learners interpret difficulty as failure, instead of recognizing it as necessary muscle building for fluency.
Another obstacle is probably the lack of immediate visible progress. Shadowing builds internal language processing skills that may not show obvious results right away.
That's a huge factor. Traditional study gives you the satisfaction of checking items off lists, new vocabulary learned, grammar rules memorized, but shadowing builds fluency gradually and organically, so the progress feels less measurable in the short term.
And I imagine many people simply don't know how to do it effectively. They might try shadowing random content without understanding how to choose appropriate materials or progress systematically.
Absolutely. Choosing the wrong level of content can make shadowing either frustratingly difficult or not challenging enough to promote real growth. The technique itself is simple, but implementing it effectively requires some strategic thinking.
So, how do we actually implement shadowing in practical terms? Let's discuss specific strategies that our listeners can start using today.
Let's break down the essential steps for effective shadowing practice.
First principle, start with appropriate content selection.
This is absolutely crucial for success. You want audio content that's slightly below your current comprehension level, not at your maximum challenge level. If you can understand about 70 to 80% when just listening, that's perfect for shadowing practice.
So if you normally watch intermediate English videos, you might choose beginner or lower intermediate content for shadowing. This gives your brain processing power to focus on speech production rather than struggling to understand the meaning.
Exactly. And choose content with clear, natural pronunciation. Avoid heavily accented speakers or poor audio quality when you're beginning. You want to learn from the clearest, most standard examples before branching out to different accents and styles.
What about content length? Should people shadow entire movies or just short clips?
Start with very short segments, maybe 30 seconds to 2 minutes maximum. Shadowing is mentally intensive, so longer sessions can lead to fatigue and decreased effectiveness. It's better to shadow intensively for short periods than to shadow casually for long periods.
Second principle, use a graduated approach.
Don't jump straight into real-time shadowing on your first attempt. Start with listening to a segment several times to familiarize yourself with the content and rhythm. Then try shadowing at a slightly slower speed if possible.
Many audio players and video platforms allow you to adjust playback speed. You might start shadowing at 75% normal speed and gradually work up to full speed as your comfort level increases.
And don't worry about perfect pronunciation or catching every word initially. Focus on matching the overall rhythm and melody of the speech, even if you're mumbling some of the specific words. The precision will come with practice.
Third principle, practice consistently but in short bursts.
Shadowing is like high-intensity interval training for your language skills. 15 to 20 minutes of focused shadowing is more valuable than an hour of unfocused practice. Your brain needs time to process and consolidate what you're learning.
And consistency matters more than duration. Shadowing 10 minutes every day will produce better results than shadowing 2 hours once a week. You're building neural pathways that strengthen through regular use.
Now let's look at what shadowing practice looks like in different real-life scenarios, so you can understand how to adapt this technique to your specific situation and goals.
Let's imagine you're a busy professional who wants to improve your English for international business meetings. How would you apply shadowing to your specific needs?
Scenario 1. You try to shadow complex business presentations or advanced TED Talks about economics. You struggle to keep up, feel frustrated, and conclude that shadowing doesn't work for you. You abandon the technique after a few attempts.
Scenario 2. You start with simpler business English content, like basic customer service dialogues or introductory business conversations. You shadow these materials for 2 weeks until you can match the rhythm and pronunciation comfortably.
Then you gradually progress to slightly more complex content, perhaps intermediate business English lessons or clear, well-structured business podcasts. You maintain this progression, always choosing content where you can focus on speech production rather than struggling to understand meaning.
After a few months of consistent practice, you notice that your pronunciation in actual business meetings sounds more natural and confident. Colleagues comment that your English has become much more fluent, even though you haven't learned many new vocabulary words.
That's the power of shadowing in action. You're not just learning words, you're learning how to use your existing vocabulary with natural English rhythm and flow.
Here's another scenario. You're a student preparing for English proficiency exams like TOEFL or IELTS. How would shadowing fit into your preparation strategy?
Scenario 1. You focus all your preparation on practice tests, vocabulary lists, and grammar exercises. Your reading and listening scores improve, but your speaking remains choppy and unnatural. You struggle with the speaking section despite knowing all the grammar rules.
Scenario 2, you incorporate shadowing into your study routine, using content similar to what appears in these exams. You shadow sample speaking responses, interview dialogues, and academic lectures at an appropriate level.
Over time, your natural speech rhythm improves dramatically. When you take the actual speaking test, your responses flow more naturally because you've internalized English speech patterns through shadowing practice. Your scores improve not because you learned new information, but because you sound more fluent and natural.
One more scenario that many of our listeners can relate to. You want to improve your everyday conversational English to feel more confident in social situations.
Scenario 1. You memorize conversational phrases and dialogue scripts, but when you try to use them in real conversations, they sound robotic and unnatural. People understand you, but you don't sound like a fluent speaker.
Scenario 2. You choose natural conversation content for shadowing, perhaps interviews with native speakers, casual podcast conversations, or scenes from realistic TV shows. You shadow these conversations regularly, focusing on the natural rhythm and intonation patterns.
After consistent practice, people start commenting that your English sounds much more natural and flowing. You haven't necessarily learned more vocabulary, but you're using your existing vocabulary with authentic English rhythm, stress patterns, and natural linking between words.
That's the transformation shadowing creates. It's not about adding more knowledge to your brain. It's about rewiring how your brain produces English speech to match native speaker patterns.
Now let's address some common challenges people face when implementing shadowing practice. Understanding these obstacles can help you navigate them successfully and maintain your practice when difficulties arise.
Challenge 1. Feeling overwhelmed or frustrated when you can't keep up.
This is the most common reason people abandon shadowing too quickly. They expect to be able to shadow perfectly from the beginning, but shadowing is a skill that develops gradually. The inability to keep up perfectly is not a failure. It's exactly what should happen when you're challenging yourself appropriately.
If you find yourself getting frustrated, try slowing down the audio speed or choosing easier content. Success in shadowing is measured by improvement over time, not by perfect performance in any single session.
Challenge 2. Feeling self-conscious about how you sound. Many people feel embarrassed when they hear themselves attempting to shadow, especially if family members or roommates might overhear them. This self-consciousness can prevent consistent practice.
Remember that everyone sounds awkward when learning a new skill. Professional musicians sound terrible when they're learning new pieces. Athletes look clumsy when they're developing new techniques. The awkwardness is temporary and necessary for improvement.
You might practice shadowing with headphones, find private spaces for practice, or simply accept that learning requires temporary discomfort. The improvement in your natural speech patterns will far outweigh any temporary embarrassment.
Challenge 3. Not seeing immediate results. Shadowing builds fluency at a subconscious level, so the improvements often become noticeable to others before you recognize them yourself. Many people quit just before the benefits become apparent.
Track your progress by recording yourself speaking English before you start shadowing practice, and then again after several weeks. You'll likely notice improvements in your natural rhythm and flow that you wouldn't perceive from day to day.
Before we conclude, let's review some essential vocabulary so you can discuss language learning techniques confidently and understand these concepts more deeply.
Let's start with our central concept, shadowing. In language learning, shadowing means simultaneously listening to and repeating audio in real time, like being someone's linguistic shadow.
For example, she improved her pronunciation dramatically through daily shadowing practice. Or, shadowing helped him develop more natural English rhythm and intonation.
Another crucial term, simultaneous. This means happening at exactly the same time, not one after the other. The simultaneous nature of shadowing is what makes it so effective for developing automatic speech patterns.
For example, simultaneous practice of listening and speaking creates stronger neural pathways than practicing each skill separately. So today, we've explored how shadowing leads to fluency, this powerful technique that bridges the gap between understanding English and speaking it naturally.
We discussed what effective shadowing practice actually involves, why it's more effective than traditional learning methods, and specific strategies for implementing this technique regardless of your current English level or learning goals.
We talked about choosing appropriate content, using a graduated approach to build skills systematically, and practicing consistently in focused short sessions that build neural pathways for automatic speech production.
We also explored real-life applications and addressed common challenges that might prevent consistent practice so you can navigate obstacles successfully and maintain your shadowing routine long enough to see dramatic results.
Remember, shadowing isn't about perfect pronunciation from day one. It's about gradually training your brain and mouth to produce English with natural rhythm, stress, and flow that makes you sound increasingly fluent over time. Here's your practical action step. What type of content will you choose for your first week of shadowing practice? Will you focus on business English, conversational English, or academic content? Share your plan in the comments.
If this episode opened your eyes to a new way of learning English, show your appreciation with a like and subscribe for more practical language learning techniques that actually work.
Remember, fluency isn't about knowing more words. It's about using the words you know with natural rhythm and confidence. Your English learning journey continues beyond this episode. Explore our other practical language learning videos and start implementing shadowing practice today.